Jazzcast Pros.
I am excited to dive into this conversation because I think it is something that has a lot of stress and worry and anxiety around it. And it's one of those things where once you get into it, it's not that bad. But it's like this elephant in the room when we're thinking about our business and we just kind of shove it in a closet and pretend like it doesn't exist and never deal with it. And if we just peeked in the closet, we could deal with it. And so the discussion we're going to have today is around the things that you should have prepared when you're going to ask for money. Banks, if you're going to ask for a business loan, if you are looking for grant money, we're going to be talking about that, and also VCs, venture capitalists. And so what I'm going to be talking about today are things that I think you should have prepared before you go to apply for those. There are some things that I think you should have ready, and there's also going to be some terms that I think you should at least have a basic understanding of, that you can start to learn more about when it comes to applying to these types of places. Welcome to High Vibe Table Talks, the podcast to help you, the current or aspiring solopreneur, navigate the messy middle so you can make both an income and an impact. And so it can be really scary to start applications like that because you're like, what do I need to know? What do I need to have prepared? Do I have to have this perfectly laid out business plan with all these things? For example, Monroe County, which is where I live, has grants and loans, and your fee can get waived in the application process if you have the MWBE certification through the county. MWBE is Minority and Women-Owned Business Enterprise. And so I am certified MWBE through Monroe County. There's also, I believe, state applications that you can go through. And I will tell you that going through the MWBE for Monroe County, I carved out all day one Wednesday to get it done. I went through the application, and by Friday I had my certification that I was MWBE certified. I have heard that the state one is much more complex. It's more of a months long thing, but go into your community, find out what you can about the process. Again, so that you're prepared. It's just about asking questions and seeing what is out there. I now get emails for specific grants where people are looking for MWBE certified businesses. And so again, I scheduled out a whole Wednesday for this application specifically. I did it in about 3 hours. By Friday, I had my certification. And so the first thing that you want to think about is, what is the main motivation of the places that you're going to ask for? So if you're going to a bank, their motivation is going to be, how are we going to get our money back? And so they're going to give you, let's say, $5,000. And the question is, how quickly are you going to be able to pay the bank back? Are you a viable business that will be able to make the payments to pay us, the bank, back, with interest? And so that is going to be at the core of a lot of their questions. They're going to want to know, are you sure you can pay us? And so number two, with grants, a lot of what grants focus on is, what is your community impact? How are you helping the community at large? And so there may be other things that you focus on, like your why, like your success stories, like the people that you have made a difference in their lives. Why did you start this business? What was that previous version of yourself that you helped? And now you're going to go out and help more people like that. And number three is venture capitalists. That is something I have not dove too much into, as far as I haven't had a lot of conversations with VCs. I know of it. There's so much money out there. And the thing that VCs really focus on is growth and scalability. So how are we going to take this from you being a solopreneur, and how can we take this idea, infuse a bunch of money into it, and all of a sudden we are a multi-million-dollar company? That is their focus. And so they are going to ask a lot of different questions compared to grants and banks. So as you're preparing, whether it's your application, your business plan, whatever you're going to bring to one of these three people, or maybe you're doing all three. Maybe you are going to look for a conventional loan and you're applying for some grants and you're having conversations with VCs. Your pitch is going to look a little bit different for each of those. And so I think the first place where you should always start is your P&L. I am going to go through some acronyms that you may hear and kind of talk about what those are and then how they apply to those 3 applications. But I think it's always really beneficial to start with your P&L, which is your profit and loss statement. So really understanding what is going out and what is coming in. Your revenue, what you're bringing in, can be, $50,000 a month. And if it costs you $49,200 to provide that good or service, your profit is $800 a month. And so if you say, I have a $50,000 a month business times, 12 months, I make $750,000 a year, but you're making $800 a month. That's not a very profitable business. So when you're thinking about like a VC, they're thinking about scalability. Well, okay, let's say I 10x how much money you're going to bring in. You're also 10xing how much it costs you. And so that's not a very scalable business. If you're thinking about the banks, if you're only making $800 on your business and that has to put food on your table and pay for activities and, build your lifestyle, there's very little room in there for you to pay the bank back. And so that may be something they're going to think about. And it's also just a good analysis of like, I didn't realize how much was going out. I didn't realize how much was coming in. I didn't realize like all these little expenses that add up. Not that long ago, I went through like just all the subscriptions that I have with like Netflix and Hulu, like just TV, Spotify, things like that. All of a sudden I was like, holy shit, that's a lot of money that's going out every month. Am I actually using this? And it's just a good analysis of the heartbeat of your business. So that is always a good place to start. And as you're putting in applications, many people who you're asking money for will want to see your P&L for the last 3 years. When I went through this process, this is how I got started using QuickBooks, because it's a very simple way to make sure you stay on top of your P&L, and it's easy to like pull P&L statements for any amount of time from something like QuickBooks, because if you just ignore it and pretend that it doesn't exist, it doesn't actually mean that it doesn't exist. So one good place to start if you are really going out and asking for money is investing in something like QuickBooks, or maybe bringing in an accountant so that those transactions and that information is easily attainable. Some of the other things that I had to have with the MWBE application were ID cards. So just making sure you are who you say you are. If you have a partner, who owns what. And then they have some basic questions about like a basic business plans. What is your elevator pitch? Who do you help? What's your ideal client? And a lot of times I think that we turn these things into way more complex entities than they need to be. What is your mission and your vision? And all that at the heart of it is asking is, how are you helping people and why? And if you answer those questions in a succinct way, you got your vision and your mission statement. Like it doesn't have to be perfect. This isn't something that is set in stone. And I talk about this a lot in my sales course. These are all like living, breathing documents and ideas. Like they will ebb and flow, they will grow and change and evolve as you and your business do. And so ignoring them because you don't think that you know exactly what they are quite yet is not going to serve you. So that was really it when it came to my MWBE application for Monroe County. What goes in, what comes out? Are you who you say you are? Are you a minority business owner? And can you prove that? And then, if you have partners, who owns what, just so they can make sure that you actually fall into the guidelines of being an MWBE. So it was pretty simple. Again, it took me about 3 hours from start to finish, but I had gathered some, like I had to get my LLC, which had like my tax ID number, things like that. It might be a good idea to like go through the application, figure out what documents you need, gather those, and then go and sit down and go through the application. So now we're going to get into a few more terms that you may hear when you're going to things like banks, applying for grants, or venture capitalists. The first piece of it, I think, is a really great exercise, whether you're going and looking for outside money or not. I just did this with the company that I'm consulting for, and it's called a SWOT analysis, SWOT. And what a SWOT analysis is, you pretty much draw 4 quadrants and you identify what are your strengths as a business, what are your weaknesses, what are your opportunities, and what are your threats. And so strengths are like, what do you do really well? What kind of are the things that you excel at and maybe make you a differentiator from a lot of the other businesses that are out there? And take some time with this. I mean, what we did when we did it last week is like really just throw stuff out there, sit with it, think about it, cross stuff off, reword it. Especially as women entrepreneurs, I think it's easy for us to be like, I don't know what makes me different. It just is what I do. And not take the time to really say, here is why I think my business is compelling. This is why it's important. This is why me as a business owner, I'm impactful. And so this is what I excel at. There's a lot of times where it can be hard for us to identify things that we excel at because it's so easy for us that we then fall under the assumption that if it's easy for me, then everybody does it. And that's not the case. Maybe this is where you go and ask a friend or a confidant, especially when it comes to business. You have to be a little careful about who you talk to about these things because some people can be dream crushers. And that I really think that's them projecting their own insecurities about going after their dreams onto you. But say, hey, or maybe take your testimonials, maybe take some customers and say, what makes me different? Why do you choose to work with me? Why did you say yes to agreeing to become a client of mine? Weaknesses. What are things that your business cannot handle? One of the reasons that I kind of put the mastermind down for now and am pivoting is because one of the weaknesses of the business was my time. You know, when I think about the scalability of it, it was this really nice 6-person cohort. There were, I think, 2 quarters where I ran 3 cohorts. I had a 10 o'clock one, a 12 o'clock one, and then a 3 o'clock one. So my Mondays and Fridays were booked out, and I was serving 18 people for that quarter. And that was it was a lot. I can run a lot of the discussions very easily, but knowing that I'm going to be on for 3 hours facilitating conversations Mondays and Fridays for 10 weeks was I needed a break after that. And so that was a weakness. It was a limitation of my business that if you change what you're doing, you can be better or do it differently. You know, there's just going to be some weaknesses that all businesses inherently have. And looking at it as, there's a difference between a weakness and a obstacle. The weakness of mine was my time, whereas an obstacle is a lot of people that I was working with in the mastermind. They were very early in their business, and so they felt that it was difficult to spend money on something like a mastermind that early in their business. That's nothing that's wrong with my business personally. It's an obstacle that I have to overcome, whether that is in marketing. Maybe I change my ideal client. It's something that I can work on. It's not necessarily a weakness that my business has. I hope that helps. Opportunities. How can I be better? How can I tap into a different market? How can I leverage what I'm already doing to grow, to scale, to enhance, to make better what is already there? So those are opportunities. And then threats. So what is something that is in the market that could create a hit for me? We never saw COVID coming, but for a lot of businesses, a global pandemic was a threat. Whereas businesses like mine that are all virtual, that was an opportunity for more people to get comfortable on Zoom and talking, in virtual rooms, and realizing that, their companies, you put so much time into the company you're working for, and are you receiving as much as you need back? Okay. So a SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. And whether you're going to ask for money or not, I think that this is a great thing that you can do for your business because it just allows you to take a step back, taking emotions out of it. Again, we all have weaknesses. A lot of times we're like ignoring them, or even our strengths. Like, nope, I'm fine. I just, And so taking some time to think through those can be very beneficial. The next acronym you may hear is ROI. And so, if you're going to talk to VCs or banks, this is definitely something that you will hear. I'm giving you this money. What am I going to get out of it? And so what ROI stands for is return on investment. I think as a business owner, this is a really interesting concept. Obviously, when we're talking about money, it feels like a calculation of I invest X amount to then get Y amount out of it. I'm going to invest $2,000 in this business coach, and they're going to help me scale my business from $5,000 months to $10,000 months. Well, I'm going to make that $2,000 back in the first month. So the ROI is pretty clear. One of the things that I think we should think about as business owners is what's the ROI of like my energy? I am currently not really making money from my podcast, but the ROI for me energetically is worth every cent I put into it. I love being here and being creative and having these discussions. And so energetically, for me, the ROI is very, very high. Banks aren't going to care about that. VCs aren't going to care about that. Grants may. But I think that stepping back and really understanding what is the ROI of any of your resources, time, money, energy, what is the ROI that you're getting when you do those things is really important. Another acronym you may hear is CAC, Customer Acquisition Cost. And so if you go back and look at how much you have to spend, again, resources as a time, energy, money, to acquire a new customer, banks are going to want to know that. My sales cycle when I was working for the SaaS company was anywhere between 12 and 18 months. So I knew that I was going to be spending 12 months of having discussions from the first time I call that prospect until the time they sign the deal. And so understanding what your customer journey looks like, it could be an interesting practice. Again, like some of these are much more high level, or when you are really looking to scale or you're asking for a lot of money, or you are looking for a business partner, really understanding what those things are will be important. But if you are relatively new into entrepreneurship and you're still trying to find your footing, these questions probably are not things you're going to be need to know. But I think being aware of them is important because as you're going through the process, then you're going to be like, oh, when I need to talk about my customer acquisition costs, these are the things that they will be asking about. Okay, so a couple other acronyms that you may hear. POC, proof of concept. If you are still in kind of like the beta and testing phase of your business, someone may ask, like, show me your proof of concept. So what is it specifically that you're going to be doing for your ideal client? Another one would be minimum viable product. So what is the minimum thing that you have to have ready to then go to take into the world? Like my initial proof of concept was running the accountability groups. And I was like, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know if people are going to like it. And so I did some beta testing and, first had 12 people in the group. That was way too many. So I scaled down to 6 people. Minimum viable product was that I had to have a Zoom and I had to have people signed up and I had to have discussion points that we were going to first talk about so people knew when they came in, okay, what are we going to be doing? Why am I showing up to this? That was really it. And so thinking about your business, and some of these are more applicable when it comes to product-based businesses versus service-based businesses. I do tend to serve more service-based businesses, and there's a lot of product-based businesses. The reason they have to answer more of these questions is because a lot of times when you're getting into a product-based business, you have to have capital to start with. Again, my business, I had to have Zoom, which I had through the company already, so I didn't have to really pay for that. I just had to get people there. If I was making water bottles, you have to buy a bunch of water bottles, buy a bunch of things you got to put on it, buy the equipment you need to, screen right on it, whatever. Have to buy the straws. And so there's a lot more you have to purchase ahead of time versus a service-based business where you're like, you are the product. You as a being are what you're offering to the world. So some of these things will be more applicable to product-based businesses, like minimum viable product, a proof of concept. So maybe you have like a beta water bottle. You're like, this is what it's going to look like. And this is why I created these different features. IP is one that comes up a lot, and that is intellectual property. So is there anything that you came up with from your own brain that makes your business stand out? And so you may hear IP as a term that's used. A GTM strategy, go to market. So how are you going to take it from idea and concept and start to bring it into the world? What platforms are you going to be on? How are you going to show up to those platforms? Why are you using those platforms specifically? And how is that going to feed your sales funnel? And then last one is ARR or MRR. So annual recurring revenue or monthly recurring revenue. A lot of businesses, when you are asking for money, or if you're going to be acquired, they want to acquire businesses that already have recurring revenue. So let's say you have a membership and you have this membership on Mighty Networks and people pay you $25 a month to be a part of the membership, and you have 100 people that are a part of it. So 100 times $25 is $2,500. So you have a monthly recurring revenue of $2,500 times 12. Your annual recurring revenue is $40,000. Incorporated in that will also be what's called your churn. So on average, how many people leave? So if you have a churn rate of 10%, about 2.5 people leave every month. And so if you do no selling at all, on average, you're going to lose 2.5 people. And so that is also the number of new customers that you like to bring in every month if you want to keep at that $2,500 a month. If you want to grow, then you have to increase that. So churn is another term that you might hear. I hope this was helpful. I hope this wasn't overwhelming. And at the end of the day, I hope that this information empowers you to start looking in places that will be able to help you. Because as my dad always says, there's 3 things that you need in business. They're cash, cash, and cash. And if you don't have one of those, you're in trouble. And so figuring out ways to bring in more money that just doesn't just mean more clients. It could also mean grants, business loans, and venture capital money may be helpful to you. So I hope this at least empowers you to take some time to explore those options, and that it's not as scary as it may be. You may be creating in your own brain. If you have any questions on any of those topics, please feel free to reach out to me. If you found any of this beneficial, I would appreciate it so much if you left me a review, gave me a rating on whatever platform you listen to this podcast on, or shared with a friend. That would be really, really helpful. I appreciate you, and until next time, remember that big dreams and small steps will transform your life.